What's up guys, back with a product review, and this one may or may not be surprising based on some past recommendations I've had on this channel. Mostly because my home fitness space is very small. I like things that are versatile, kind of have multi-purpose uses, and have a relatively small footprint. So really anything that I consider adding to this small space really has to bring with it a lot of value to really make it worth it. So as you guys can see by the video, I'm talking about this Titan Fitness vertical leg press machine, and I'm gonna be talking about in this video why I eventually pulled the trigger on this little giant of a machine. I'll of course discuss some of the pros and cons of the product, how I've been using it, how I plan on using it in the future. And finally, I'll talk about, at least for me, if this thing met my expectations, if I really thought it was worth it in the long run, and hopefully this isn't just gonna be something else that I just sell on the secondhand market. Now, just to be clear, I did pay money for this product. Titan Fitness in no way kind of gave me this or sponsored this video, so this is gonna be a totally honest review. But with that being said, I will put two links down below if you guys do consider eventually picking up this product and or want to kind of support me in the channel. These two links do help support me. So one of them is just an Amazon link. The second one actually goes to Titan Fitness's website. That's where I opted to pick up mine just because it was actually cheaper on that website. It had free shipping. Honestly, it actually came really quick. I think it came within like 3 days. So I was actually kind of surprised how fast the shipping was. So if you guys do consider picking one of these up, greatly appreciate if you guys want to check out those links down below in the description box. And at the very least, if you guys find this video at all helpful and informative, please consider liking, subscribing if you guys haven't, or sharing this content. I'll also put timestamps down below to make the video a little bit helpful so you guys can jump around to certain spots if you feel necessary. First, I just want to get into why I purchased the product, and I'll actually do so in the backdrop of me just kind of unboxing the product. And briefly, I'll just say, came in a pretty big, heavy box. Other than that, really easy to put together. You guys can see it had like digital instructions. Everything out of the box looked really good as far as like the quality. The metal looked really solid. Really easy to put together. That's if you have a socket wrench and your kids don't lose your parts to your socket wrench. Eventually did find that. Otherwise, it should be really easy to put together if you guys got a socket wrench. Really basic setup for the most part. Didn't take too long. So if this is the first time if you guys are seeing this channel, I talk about Sony bench trainers and total gyms for the most part. If you guys are frequent watchers of my channel, you might be kind of surprised that I actually went ahead and invested in such a thing. I'll get into why I actually do think, or I was actually hoping that this thing would be a great complement to a total gym or Sony bench trainer. Now I'm sure there's people kind of watching this right now that maybe are yelling at their screens saying like, oh, you got a barbell, you got a rack. All you need is squats and deadlifts and those kind of key barbell exercises to work your lower body at home. But if you did click on this video, maybe you are like me and you just miss going on the basic leg press machine at the gym. I, for one, just love doing the leg press. I felt like it really hit my legs in all the right areas, didn't stress my knees, and I could do a lot of high volume work that really worked and helped develop my legs overall. So obviously the problem that most people kind of face and why most people don't buy a leg press for their home is because it's expensive, they're very big, and again, they just take up a lot of space. So these vertical leg press machines really start to become the only viable option for most people because they don't take up a lot of space. They're relatively, inexpensive. This one's, less than $500. But there's still some concerns that kind of come up because even though it is relatively small and kind of inexpensive, it might seem like a kind of one-dimensional machine. So is it really worth kind of investing in something like that? It does still take up a decent amount of space relatively. But overall, at least for me, I wasn't sure how I'd really like these things. So it's one of these things you're not really sure how something like this is a machine, it's kind of a fixed kind of static machine. You're not really sure how it's going to fit you, and that was my biggest concern. So once I got this thing fully assembled and I kind of found a little home for this, I kind of was already thinking that this would be a nice spot to put it. I might even move this in the future, but once I got this thing assembled, my initial thoughts right away were like, this thing is pretty cool. I mean, it looked really nice. Like I said, all the quality of the machine looked really good. So this is before I kind of hopped in it. I just thought, already I felt like, hey, this is a good sign. I like where things are going. So once I enthusiastically hopped in this thing and tried some repetitions with no weight, I immediately felt like this was a good decision. Now I can only really speak for myself because everyone's a little different as far as how things kind of feel and suit them, but I'm 6 foot tall and about 200 pounds. I feel like I'm pretty flexible, I have good range of motion. Just as far as the range of motion, just how it felt overall, I'll get into more specifics in a second. I just thought it felt good. Specifically, something I was concerned with was how it would feel kind of at the bottomed out position. So yes, you can put these pins in. I'll talk about this later to kind of lock it out. But here's the machine kind of bottomed out. It's about this low. So if the thing did fall down, this is where it would stop at. I really wanted to make sure that, for me at least, that I can get to a nice kind of bottom position. And even when I used to go to the gym and do basic leg presses, I would mix around the range of motion a bit. But one of my favorite things I'd love to do is try and get as low as I kind of could to kind of dial in and press out from that bottom position. I always felt like, again, at least for me, that would really kind of help target the hamstrings and the glutes specifically. I think it's pretty easy. Most people are going to feel it in their quadriceps, but to really feel it near your hamstrings and glutes requires a little bit of focus and kind of fine-tuning the machine that works for you. So I was definitely pleasantly surprised that I could get nice and low. It fit good for me. I was concerned the bottom position might not be too low. So overall, I felt like overall I had a good range of motion that could suit my needs. Now with that being said, you might be concerned, like I was alluding to earlier, that since you can't move and manipulate this backrest, that you're kind of in this fixed position. But I found there's a lot of play with this. You can see that this mat is pretty big. And if I just put my head on the mat, the point is my butt's like kind of like 3/4 of the way down. I actually can scoot further down the machine where my head is off the mat. And basically the point I would do that is it just helps me kind of fine tune and get to different positions and kind of target certain areas of my legs more or less. Certainly where you place your feet, how you turn out your feet, all sorts of different angles can hit different parts of your legs. So while it seems like it's kind of fixed and one-dimensional, at least for me, I found that I could hit a lot of different angles, a lot of unique positions, and it kind of gave a little more versatility to the actual machine. Now I'd love to give you guys a little more specifics. I'm sure you guys might want to know, like, well, depending on where you kind of sit in the machine and how your feet are placed, what parts of your leg are getting hit more or less. I honestly think that's kind of hard to do based on the fact that everyone's built differently, everyone has different range of motions. So I would just say the best suggestion or advice I would give you guys is don't just stay fixed to one position if you can. You know, obviously work around your limitations, but you know, try different positions, try different foot angles, and to me that just makes this equipment all the more versatile. I even found that even doing I did a lot of sets on this machine, and I've still done a lot of sets on this machine when I do a workout in this, that I'll just switch up each set, just working in different angles, doing different positions. So I would encourage you guys to kind of try that for yourself if you guys actually do pick up this machine or do consider it. Now it's kind of getting into like more range of motion and kind of how it feels, like kind of just positioning yourself on the machine. As far as like the actual feel of like this thing going up and down, I felt it's definitely not super smooth, so that's one thing, but it's also not like super stiff either. It's kind of like right in the middle. You'll see comments and reviews online about people saying like you got to kind of keep these like two towers, we're gonna call it, two rods, lubricated. I would definitely say that's true. It gives you some lubrication. It's not like it's a huge deal. Like when I first started doing it, it wasn't like super squeaky, but you'll hear like some squeak once in a while. So I did find myself kind of lubricating this a little bit, but wasn't a huge deal. I noticed it would squeak the most when I had this thing fully extended doing like calf raises, which you can actually do some awesome calf raises on here, but that's the only time I really noticed the squeak a lot, is when like this thing's fully extended out and I hear some like rubbing noises. Otherwise, I would say as far as how it moves up and down, I would just say it's kind of between like super smooth and like super tough. It's kind of like right in the middle, but otherwise I think it feels pretty good. Another great plus and a concern of mine that I was kind of worried about was how this thing feels on your joints. So one of the big draws of picking up something like this is that I want it to be something that's going to really isolate and focus in that stress where I want it to feel, which is in my my leg muscles. So I didn't want to have a whole lot of stress on my knees, lower back, and hips. I can speak for myself that first, definitely in the knees, I don't feel any stress in my knees whatsoever. That's a good thing. In my lower back, that's a concern for some people. I think if you do a lot of sets, which I did in a lot of reps, you start to feel a little bit fatiguing in your lower back just because you're gonna forward flex it maybe a tiny bit, but I don't think it's really a big deal. It's honestly no more different than if I did this on a regular leg press machine. That can be something that kind of comes up, but I didn't find like an excess stress in the lower back. Hips, I thought for the most part felt good too. If anything, when I started doing a lot of increased higher sets, it might have felt slightly like there was like some like hip flexor tension or just some tension kind of building up like on the top of my thighs. But again, not really a big deal. And also you got to consider I was doing a lot of sets, a lot of repetitions, so that may have just kind of been building up over time. But that's one of the pleasant big surprises and things that met my expectations, is that this thing really focused in and dialed stress on my legs with also minimizing stress on my joints. Wrapping up like this like pros section, what I want to emphasize is, which was my biggest concern, was if I'm going to get this single unit machine that's kind of just doing leg presses, is how is this thing going to feel for me? Does it feel good, basically? And I can just say for myself, it does feel good, and I am definitely pleasantly surprised, considering the price point, considering the size, that this thing could actually be an awesome winner in that regard. All right, now getting into some of the cons, because not saying this thing is totally perfect. I don't think really any machine is going to be perfect. First thing I will say is, this is no particular order, is yeah, for some people I could see it might be a little awkward getting in and out of. I didn't really mind it too much, but if you're someone who doesn't like getting down and up out of the ground, that could be a problem. Granted, I'm in a weird tight spot here. Probably better if I didn't have a wall here to kind of slip out that way. But just getting in and out of it, again, not a huge deal. It's kind of minor, but I can see where some people, this might be kind of cumbersome to get in and out of the position. Second thing would be, yeah, this foot pad. I was concerned about this. To me, it's not a huge deal. It would be great if this was bigger and thicker. I'm not an engineer. I'm sure there's a reason why they don't make these things bigger. I do go even off to the side and do some like wider presses here. It'd be cool if this like even stretched a little bit wider. That would be nice. Other vertical leg presses on machine actually had smaller foot pads, so you can take that as you will. So I'm not sure why these things are smaller. Not a huge deal. I'm also using kind of like thin-soled shoes. I could see where a lot more value would be taken out of this thing if you actually had like thicker kind of like boot style shoes. So I might consider actually throwing those on when I actually do these workouts. All right, and then one con that people have talked about in past reviews that when I first saw them, I'm like, well, that's not really that big a deal. It wouldn't really bother me, but I could see where, yeah, it'd be nice where this wasn't an issue, is that you got to use these pins to kind of lock them in and out. So you got these nice little handles that look good, but they're just not functional, like locking them in and out. And you guys know, especially when you start doing high repetitions and high sets like I've been doing, on those last 5 sets, you just want to lock this thing out with a basically slightly extended leg and just kind of lock out the leg press like we do in a lot of machines. Even though I said I can kind of lower this and bottom it out here, for some reason when you get kind of tired at the end of a set, the last thing you want to do is bottom it out in the bottom position. So you're kind of like really at that last set, you're trying to find these pins and just put them in there as fast as possible. Not a big deal. I will say they lock at a nice high level. It makes it seem like it's pretty safe, but the locking mechanism I could see being a con, but not really a huge issue. Now the biggest con of this machine that I think might make or break it for some people is going to be just kind of the slight sway of the machine when you start loading up the weight. I didn't have a whole lot of weight to play with, but honestly, when I was buying this, I already kind of knew that when I used to go to the gym, I'd use traditional leg presses. Gone were the days when I would load up like the mega weights for ego, like a lot of people do when they were younger. I always loved just kind of doing moderate weights, like, you know, maybe 345s or 445 on each side, and just doing kind of higher volume type sets. That's what I like, to kind of really feel that's stress and tension in the muscles for high repetitions and high sets. And so that's what I was kind of planning on doing. Once I started playing with a little more weight, I didn't have I have a set of 45s. It doesn't have a 2-inch plate on there, so I had to kind of like balance them on there. I wouldn't recommend doing that. But when I threw kind of like the most amount of weight of plates that I had on here, I did notice that, yeah, especially when this thing's extended, this thing likes to kind of sway. It doesn't seem like it can handle too much weight. It's loaded and assessed for a lot of different, for heavy weight. So it's not that you can't do it. It's just that that kind of sway might bother you a little bit. I'm sure it's safe. That just might be an issue, but I just feel like when it kind of sways a lot, you kind of lose that dialed in focused tension that you kind of feel with your body in the machine. So I like when it's not swaying. I think most people would. So I think this thing really excels in kind of like the more moderate loads. But if you're someone looking for a leg press to push a lot of heavy weight, I would say this might not be for you. But again, that's just me just doing like a few sets at that heavy weight, noticing that sway. If there's anything else different that you guys have seen, if you guys do have this equipment to help kind of minimize that, definitely let me know. All right, so how I've been using it and how I plan on using it, I kind of alluded to a little bit that when I used to go to the gym, and even with this thing currently, I love actually just jumping on this machine or a traditional leg press and just spending some time on it and just mixing up just the rep ranges and range of motions. But I like higher volume, higher set work. So there are some days where it's like my lower body or leg day. I've just been jumping on here and just going to town on this machine, just doing a lot of sets, mixing up the weight, mixing up the range of motion, different foot placements. That seems to work really well. And then of course, definitely, at least for me, I love these SaniMen's training devices. I got this other equipment in here. I'll definitely do some days where I'm kind of mixing in that with this. That worked out really well. As far as like how my setups kind of made, kind of aligned, I think it is pretty cool where I can maybe have some isolation exercises on my total gym, and then I can jump on here and do some multi-joint kind of a supersetting back and forth. So basically, I'll do some days I'll be using this in conjunction with my total gym for my lower body days. Otherwise doing some standalone days on here. And that was kind of my thought process when I bought it, is that if this thing worked out how I wanted it to work out, I would definitely just use some more standalone leg workouts. And at least for me, I know this is kind of limited to who's watching this. I think this thing is an awesome complement to a total gym or a SaniMen's trainer if you guys do have one, just because it is maybe that missing link. You're gonna add a little more increased tension and focus on the legs that in some ways you kind of do miss out on a total gym. So that's really it, guys. In summary, I will wrap up in just saying I do really love this thing. I'm happy that I got this thing. It's a device like all my devices and equipment that I get. I shouldn't say everything, because if I don't like something, I sell it. But this is one of those things when you pick it up, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'm happy I bought this. It's something that I want to use. I want to jump on it. It's complementing everything else in my little home gym setup that I got. It works out for my ideal small footprint, and even though I consider myself kind of a minimalist as much as I can, I definitely would love and I encourage people to pick up things that are really going to tie and complement and give you guys the biggest bang for your buck exercise for the time you're putting into your workout. So this to me was definitely a winner. Again, if you guys are interested in seeing this or checking this product out or purchasing it, definitely maybe consider checking out those links. It's definitely helps support the channel and me in making more of these videos. With that being said, any questions, comments, feedback, let me know. If you guys own one of these things and you have negative things or positive things to say or some tips about using it, definitely let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.